Hello and welcome to today's video. This is English Made Easy by IBPS Guide. Today we will be discussing essay writing. We'll discuss a few templates and examples as well. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little about IBPS Guide. On our website, we have daily free questions. You can use them to practice for your SSC as well as banking exams. You can also check out our test series, which are of the highest standards, and all of the tests come with detailed solutions. At the end of every test, you will be provided with a SMART analysis, which you can use to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. It's also available in Hindi and English, so you can switch between the two. You can access our website through the desktop as well as the mobile app. For more information, please check out our e-store at estore.ibpsguide.com. Let's begin our session with the general format. So you have 5 paragraphs in total. Your introduction is the first paragraph. You will have 3 body paragraphs and 1 paragraph for your conclusion. Please make sure that you don't write in point format. It has to be in the paragraph format. Let's take a look at the rules for writing an effective essay. Each paragraph should have a unique point. If you have 3 paragraphs, you should have 3 unique points. You cannot elaborate on the same point for more than 1 paragraph. Next, every sentence should have a purpose. If the sentence that you're writing does not have a purpose, please remove it. You're only writing about 250 to 300 words, so make sure that every sentence counts. Next, transition smoothly. Alright, this is important. This is what ensures the flow throughout your essay. So there should be a transition between the first paragraph and the second. So the last line should have something about the next topic. Next, create an outline. It's always important for you to create an outline before you start writing the essay. This will ensure that your essay sounds put together. We will be discussing this in detail, and I will tell you how to create an outline for different topics. Number 5, include a counter argument. A counter argument is nothing but the opposing view. For example, if you're talking for a subject, the counter argument will be against the subject. The reason you are including this in your essay is to invalidate the other point, to make your point stronger. So if you talk about the counter argument and you prove it wrong, that means you are making your argument even stronger. Alright, next, only use words that you know the usage of. Don't try to use words that you're not familiar with and you will end up using it in the wrong context. Do not include more than 1 quote, proverb, or anecdote. Again, just because you know a lot of quotes or you've prepared a lot of proverbs, don't include more than 1. It will become redundant and the person who is correcting your essay will get bored. Alright, last point, but a very important point, do not overload your essay with facts. If you overload your essay with facts, it becomes a factual essay. It sounds like a newspaper report. That is not what we want to do. So make sure that you only include details and facts that are relevant to your argument. Creating an outline for your essay. So this will be the format for your outline. You start with your grabbers, topic and conclusion. Your topic will have 3 paragraphs. In the first 2 paragraphs, you'll discuss problems, and in the last paragraph, you will discuss solutions and counter arguments. The grabbers are a part of the introduction. They grab your attention. They make you want to read more. That's what grabbers are. We will be discussing the types of grabbers in the next slide. Like I said earlier, grabbers will be the first sentence in your essay. It can be any one of these 6 types. It can be a proverb or a quote, anecdote, fact, question, premise, or statistical report. When using proverbs or quotes, you need to be a little bit careful because there is a risk that you might be using a very common proverb that a lot of other candidates will be using. In that case, it does not serve the purpose. The person who is correcting your essay would have read the same proverb in 10 different essays. Okay, so be careful about which proverb you use, and if you're quoting someone, you have to know who said it. If you don't know who said it, don't quote. Alright, anecdotes are nothing but stories. You can even make them up, so it's very easy to use anecdotes. Just make sure that it's impactful. Surprising fact, again, be careful. The fact that you give them, it should not be something they have already heard. It should actually be surprising. Next, questions that pique curiosity. Questions is one of the easiest grabbers to do, and it is my favorite. It's very, very easy to grab someone's attention by starting with a question. Premise. Premise is usually used when you're talking about something related to reforms or policies, government. When it's related to that, it's better to start with the premise. Like, for example, if you're writing an essay on demonetization, you know that demonetization has a lot to do with corruption and black money. So you can start by talking about the premise surrounding the issue before you talk about the policy. Next, statistical report. Statistical reports are also excellent ways to open your essay, but again, be careful. You need to have an authentic source and you need to mention the source. If you don't know where that number is coming from or on which report that number was mentioned, don't write it. How are you going to construct the body of your essay? First, start by asking questions. What, when, how, where, who. Ask questions related to your topic. This will help you generate ideas. Once you have a few ideas, select 2 or 3 major ideas. Now, you have to select ideas which you can elaborate on because you need to write 1 paragraph per idea. Now, if you have 3 body paragraphs, you can talk about the problems in the first 2 paragraphs, and then you can present your solutions in the 3rd paragraph. You can also include counter arguments in your 3rd paragraph. Okay, present 1 example or incident. Don't overcrowd your essay with too many examples and incidents. If you want to include an example, include just 1 in any one of the body paragraphs. Concluding the essay. Okay, so in the body of the essay, you have talked about the problems and you've also talked about the solutions. So in your conclusion, you have to present your opinion. Do you think it has a positive impact or a negative impact? And when you're presenting your opinion, you need to make a strong statement. Use words like undoubtedly, definitely, I believe. Don't use weak words like maybe, perhaps, it could be. That is not what you want to do. You have started your essay strong, so you need to finish strong as well. Stand by your opinion. Let's take a look at a few templates. So we have one template for social issues and another for reforms, policies, and government-related topics. So for social issues, your intro can start with an anecdote or a fact that will be your grabber. Next point in your intro will be your individual view, and the 3rd point you can pose a question. We'll talk more about that when we're looking at the examples. Now the body you can subdivide into these 3 topics when it's a social issue. First, you can talk about the impact on society. Next, you can talk about the problems. And in the 3rd paragraph, you can discuss government efforts, solutions, and counter arguments. Your conclusion should always contain the way forward, and it should be a strong statement. Finally, end on an optimistic note. Okay, template for reforms and policies. For the introduction, you can use the premise as the grabber. You can talk about the circumstances surrounding the introduction of the policy or the reform. Next, you can talk about your individual opinion on the policy or the reform. 3rd, pose a question. So this will be your introductory paragraph. For the body, you can subdivide it into these 3 topics: immediate effects, long-term effects, and supportive measures and policies, counter arguments as well. For the conclusion, same as the other template, talk about the positive impacts and end on an optimistic note. Let's take a look at examples now. First example is an essay on women empowerment. We will be using the template that we discussed earlier, the template for social issues. We'll be using that format. Okay, so the grabber has to be either an anecdote or a fact. In this case, we have used a fact. It's something that the Canadian Prime Minister said in 2015. He said, because it's 2015, when asked why he appointed an equal number of men and women in his 30-member cabinet. Now, this is something that is truly amazing, and you use that to your advantage. You've used that as your grabber, and it will make the reader want to read more. Next, you have to present your independent or individual view. Okay, what we want to say is that implementation of laws relating to women empowerment is difficult in developing countries. This is what we want to say. But it has to relate to your first sentence. You can't just have a second sentence that has no connection to your grabber, right? So you have to word the second sentence accordingly. You can say something like, although incidents like this are seen in developed countries, and it sounds very amazing, it's very difficult to realize things like that in developing countries like our own. So you can say it in that way to link the first sentence and the second sentence, which is your individual view. Okay, now your third sentence, you will be posing a question using the contrast method. So let me explain what the contrast method is. Basically, you will be using a contrast sign like but, although, okay? And you will frame a question that will make the reader want to know the answer to that question. So here we are using the question, although empowerment laws have been created in India, the question remains, how well have they been implemented? Okay, so by posing a question like this in your introduction, you will have a lot more to say in your body, and you will be giving the answer to this question. So the question is, how well have the women empowerment laws been implemented? And you will be talking about the problems in those laws, and you will be talking about the solutions to it as well. Next section is the body of the essay. We discussed earlier that when it's an essay on social issues, you can use these three topics or these three ideas to elaborate on. So your first paragraph will be about the societal impact of women empowerment. So you can talk about what exactly you think women empowerment is and what the goal or the purpose of it is. And then you can talk about traditional practices in our country that have created gender-specific roles. Like, for example, since ancient times, in our country, we've always had gender-specific roles. There are certain things that only women do, and there are certain things that only men do. And slowly, of course, things are changing, but predominantly that is the practice we have in our country. Here you can include an example. You can talk about how women are expected to do household chores even if they are working, and men don't go and do the dishes or wash the clothes even if they have more time than the woman. In the next paragraph, you can introduce the problems that we are facing in the implementation of women empowerment laws. You can talk about the policies and laws that have been passed already and what problems we are facing in those regards. You can also talk about the lack of awareness about empowerment laws, and a lot of women don't know what the laws are, and so they don't go and complain or try to make things better. You can also talk about the large percentage of women who don't report inequality or harassment due to fear of repercussions. Mostly women who don't have that much exposure are scared of what society will say and what people will say, and so they don't report inequality. So in your final paragraph, your third body paragraph, you can discuss solutions. So in this case, you will be talking about government measures and counter-arguments. You can talk about the different laws that have been passed in order to empower women and how these laws can be used to the benefit of women if awareness was there. We've come to the last leg of the essay, the conclusion. So there are two things that you need to mention in your conclusion: the way forward. And this has to be your opinion, and it has to be strongly stated. Don't use words like might be, maybe, perhaps. Use words like only, definitely to make a strong statement. The last thing you need to say is you have to be futuristic and optimistic about the whole thing. You cannot list a bunch of problems and then say that these are the problems and nothing can be done. The purpose of your essay is to talk about the problems and to present solutions. So end on a futuristic note. Say things like, I hope that things will change for the better, or I believe that things will change for the better. Okay, in this case, we are talking about the way forward. We say the only way forward is to fix the flawed redressal system. So a lot of people who have complaints, they go and complain, but those complaints are not taken care of properly. So that's what we mean when we say that the only way forward is to fix the flawed redressal system. The last sentence we will say is, we have the will, now we need to make the way. As awareness grows, we can expect to see women empowered in our country. That's one way of ending your essay on an optimistic note. Alright guys, so we have discussed the outline of the essay. If you want to take a look at the full essay, the link is in the description box below. So the next example we are going to be discussing is an essay on demonetization. So before we begin with that, let's just quickly take a look at the template for essays on reforms and policies, and then we can get started. Okay, so the intro has to begin with the premise. We already talked about what the premise is. So there will be a reason why the policy has been introduced, so you talk about that reason. Next, you introduce your individual opinion, your personal opinion, what you think about it. Then you pose a question using the contrast method. In your body, you have 3 paragraphs. First, you talk about the immediate effects of the policy. Then you talk about the long-term effects. Then you talk about supportive measures and supportive policies. Your conclusion, you will talk about the positive impact of the reform or the policy, and you will end on a futuristic, optimistic note. Let's begin with the introduction. So for your grabber, you will be using the premise, and we all know that demonetization has a lot to do with black money and corruption, things like that. So we are going to talk about the premise. Against the backdrop of corruption and black money, demonetization has been considered a relevant reform. Okay, now that you have your grabber, we're going to talk about the individual opinion. India is known to have a parallel economy where unreported income is the norm. The effectiveness of demonetization depends on supportive measures. So here you are saying that you believe that the effectiveness of demonetization depends on the supportive measures. Next, now you have to pose a question that is related to both the grabber and your individual opinion. So here I have used this question. To assess its success, we have to ask the question, how well do these measures complement each other in fighting black money? Okay, so when you pose a question like that, it makes your reader want to know the answer to those questions. Next comes the body of the essay. So we will be talking about the immediate effects, long-term effects, and the supportive measures. So under immediate effects, I'm talking about the netting of black money deposited in the banking systems, and I'm talking about unaccounted money that's physically hoarded, and those people cannot return the money and they cannot justify their income. So next paragraph is the long-term effects. I'm talking about real estate transactions which will be recorded and they will have to disclose their buying and selling of property. I'm also talking about curbing unaccounted transactions by necessitating ID card and PAN card. Your third paragraph, like I said, has to be presenting the solutions. So here we are talking about the supportive measures that have been taken to make demonetization successful. So you can talk about the tax administration policies where everyone is required to show their ID when they're making transactions above a certain limit. You can talk about the Benami Transactions Act, and you can talk about formalizing transactions. So these are the supportive measures that have been taken by the government to ensure that demonetization has some beneficial effects in terms of curbing black money. We've come to the conclusion, so we know that we have to talk about the positive impacts and we have to end on an optimistic note. So here I am talking about the awareness and the consciousness. So people are aware about the situation and they know that there is a parallel economy, and the consciousness of legal measures. So people also know, they're conscious of the fact that legal measures can be taken against anybody when it comes to black money. Okay, now I am trying to end on an optimistic note, so these are the 2 points that I've decided to go with. It will create a mindset to stay away from black money. I say this because common people will be more scared to get involved in black money transactions because they know about the repercussions. Next, this shake-up of the Indian society, although cannot be measured, is a big outcome. So this is what I'm saying in order to end on an optimistic note. Now that we've talked about templates and examples, let's talk about time management. Here is an example of what an actual outline is supposed to look like. For each point, you will only write 1 or 2 words. In the examples we discussed earlier, I had written full sentences, but I only did that so that you can understand better. When you are writing your actual outline, you just need to write 1 or 2 hint words per idea. So here you can see that this is the outline for the demonetization essay. So the first point was the premise, which was about corruption. So just write down the word corruption. Second one was your personal opinion, and you said that the effectiveness depends on supportive measures. So just write depends supportive measures. Third, you posed a question, right? And the question was, how effective is it? So just write that down. Next, again, body, you have 3 paragraphs, 4, 5, 6. Immediate effect is netting, long term is the land deals, and supportive policies are the tax policy, Benami Act, and formalization. 7th and 8th point is your conclusion. You talk about the positives, which is awareness and consciousness. And in the last point, you talked about how the society has been shaken up and how it's a big outcome. Okay, so that's how you write an actual outline. It should only be a few words, and don't skip creating an outline for your essay. Jot down ideas as they come to you. Don't include details in your outline. Don't write examples, anecdotes, or quotes in your outline. You should not spend more than 5 minutes. And when you're writing an outline in your exam, make sure that you just write down the outline first, start the essay below the outline, and delete the outline when you're done typing your essay. So make sure that you jot down the points as and when you remember it. Let's look at the next point. Don't include details. Don't write examples, anecdotes, or quotes in your outline. Guys, please don't write any details in your outline. Your outline is just for you to, think with clarity and to have a flow throughout your essay. That is the purpose of an outline, okay? All right, don't spend more than 5 minutes on your outline. This again is very important. If you spend like 8 minutes just writing your outline, you're not going to have enough time for your essay. All right, start the essay below the outline and delete the outline when you're done with the essay. This goes without saying. I'm sure you all know to do that. Alright everyone, that's all for today's video. I hope you found the tips useful. Do leave your thoughts in the comment section below. We would love to know what topics you want us to cover in the next video. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe for regular updates. We will be uploading more tips and tricks videos and videos on vocabulary as well. As always, work hard and work smart.